Nepal, a country long known as the land of the Himalayas, is not as idyllic as many imagine. Behind the majestic, snow-capped mountains lies a bitter reality and deep disappointment that has wounded the hearts of its people. Those wounds and frustrations soon turned into anger and a wave of brutal riots. In a matter of days, Nepal transformed into a terrifying sea of fire. A nation once renowned for its peaceful image revealed its darkest side. Thousands of demonstrators, most of them members of Generation Z, surrounded government buildings. They did not merely shout their anger, they burned and destroyed those buildings. At the same time, the homes of the country's leaders were targeted. The private residence of the Prime Minister was set ablaze by the furious crowd. Even the president's home and the interior minister's residence were attacked and burned. Flames engulfed many corners of the capital. Small police stations were torched, cars overturned and set on fire in the streets. Thick black smoke rose high into the sky, polluting Kathmandu's air and symbolizing the fragility of a nation long hidden behind its natural beauty. The situation spun completely out of control until the Prime Minister and President fled and resigned. In this dark episode, the death toll kept climbing as more bodies were found in burned-out buildings. As of now, at least 51 people have been reported dead. The victims include dozens of young protesters, 3 police officers, and several prisoners who were killed while attempting to escape after the prisons were stormed by the mob. Even the prisons were not spared. More than 12,500 inmates reportedly escaped during the chaos, though some have since been recaptured by security forces or Indian border guards as they tried to flee to the neighboring country. More than 2,100 people were injured during the 2 days of brutal clashes. Hospitals in Kathmandu were packed with gunshot victims, people beaten with batons, and those affected by tear gas. Medical workers worked tirelessly to treat the young people who became martyrs in this nationwide outburst of anger. This massive wave of protests that shook Nepal in 2025 did not emerge in a vacuum. It was the culmination of years of simmering frustration and suffering among the people. Nepal is known worldwide as a roof of the world, with breathtaking scenery and rich culture. But behind that exotic and peaceful image lies a darker reality, especially in the realms of economics and politics. Economically, Nepal is one of the poorest countries in Asia, with per capita income of around $1,440 per year, approximately IDR 21 million. It is the second lowest income country in South Asia, after Afghanistan. Although the absolute poverty rate has declined, most of the population still lives on the edge and remains highly vulnerable to shocks. Since the 1990s, Nepal's economic growth has been relatively sluggish, averaging only about 4% per year. At such a pace, it is difficult for the country to catch up in terms of infrastructure development and job creation. Agriculture remains the main source of employment, but most of it is subsistence farming with very low productivity. Nepal's manufacturing sector is tiny and continues to shrink. The country exports very few value-added products, mostly just raw agricultural commodities. Tourism, which should be one of Nepal's most promising sectors due to its stunning natural beauty, remains underdeveloped. Progress is hampered by weak infrastructure and natural disasters. Despite its huge potential, tourism has been slow to develop due to poor investment and excessive bureaucracy. One of the main drivers of Nepal's economy does not even come from within the country, but from abroad, remittances sent home by migrant workers. More than 8% of Nepal's population works overseas in Gulf states like Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, as well as Malaysia, South Korea, and even Europe. They work as construction laborers, domestic helpers, drivers, and other low-wage jobs. The money they send home accounts for over 33% of Nepal's GDP. In other words, 1/3 of Nepal's economy is sustained by income earned abroad, not by domestic production. Remittances have helped reduce poverty. Many families in rural areas have been able to build houses or send their children to school with the money sent from Malaysia or the Middle East. But this dependence also exposes a weakness. Nepal is losing its young and productive workforce, leaving the country vulnerable to global economic conditions. The exodus of Nepalese citizens seeking work abroad is driven by the severe lack of decent jobs at home. Data shows that youth unemployment reached around 20% in 2024. The government admits that over 2,000 young people leave Nepal every single day in search of work abroad. Even many university graduates prefer to work as low-paid laborers overseas rather than remain unemployed at home. Wages within Nepal are very low, while the cost of living continues to rise. For many families, working abroad is seen as the only viable path to social mobility. This massive labor migration has created the illusion of prosperity. In many villages, large concrete houses are built with money from abroad, while farmland lies abandoned because the youth have left. As a result, food production declines and dependence on imports grows. Those who remain in Nepal are sometimes reluctant to work hard, as their families are already supported by remittances. This creates a cycle of stagnation. The domestic economy does not grow, forcing the next generation to migrate as well. Nepal's landlocked geography also poses a challenge. The country is bordered by India on 3 sides and by China to the north. Nearly all of Nepal's international trade must pass through India. The nearest seaport is in Kolkata, India, hundreds of kilometers away. Nepal's dependence on India became painfully clear during the 2015 blockade, when the country was brought to a standstill due to fuel and medicine shortages. Even in normal times, importing goods into Nepal costs more than in most countries, driving up local prices while purchasing power remains very low. Domestically, Nepal's infrastructure is still underdeveloped. For instance, despite its vast hydropower potential, the country has only tapped a small fraction of it. Until the mid-2010s, Kathmandu experienced rolling blackouts lasting 8 to 12 hours a day, severely hindering industry. Inner-city roads are often narrow and prone to landslides. Nepal relies heavily on imported fossil fuels and manufactured goods. Its primary export is labor. This difficult economic situation is intertwined with the daily struggles of its people. Many hover just above the poverty line and risk falling back into poverty at the slightest crisis. In remote villages, access to basic services is extremely limited. Schools are far, healthcare facilities are lacking, and roads are in poor condition. In cities like Kathmandu, underemployment is widespread. Many work in the informal sector with barely enough income to survive. Economic inequality is growing. An emerging urban upper middle class enjoys shopping malls, private cars, and vacations abroad, while most people still struggle to meet basic needs. For years, the Nepalese people tried to remain patient. They remember the hardships of the civil war and tolerated petty corruption as long as there was no return to conflict. Remittances from relatives abroad kept their kitchens running. But patience has limits. As an educated younger generation emerged, they saw little real progress. Despite having access to the outside world, their anger grew, and in the middle of this frustration, they were confronted with a political stage that felt like a farce. Since becoming a republic, Nepal has seen one coalition government after another. Unfortunately, this political instability has been fueled by power-sharing deals rather than long-term policymaking. Public trust in politicians has plummeted. A 2013 survey found that 90% of Nepalese believe their political parties are corrupt or very corrupt. By 2024, Nepal still ranked near the bottom of Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, 107th out of 180 countries, with a score of only 34 out of 100. High-level corruption has repeatedly surfaced in major scandals, from COVID-19 procurement fraud the bribes in infrastructure projects, and the infamous Valuator land scam involving the Prime Minister's associates. Yet very few elites ever face serious punishment. The public sees a cycle of impunity. Officials simply resign temporarily and then return to power through another channel. What hurts ordinary citizens even more is the rampant nepotism, popularly called Nepo Kids culture. Many senior political leaders pass down power and privileges to their children, who receive elite educations abroad and return to occupy influential positions or win parliamentary seats thanks to their family names. Young activists from Gen Z are disgusted by the way these children of the elite flaunt their glamorous lifestyles on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, posing with luxury cars, expensive watches, branded handbags, and photos from European vacations. For ordinary young Nepalese who are struggling to find work or are forced to migrate, these images feel like an insult to their hardship. Political nepotism not only enrages the public, but also undermines government performance. Key positions are filled based on loyalty or family ties rather than competence, leading to poor public services and unprofessional decision-making. A clear example was the government's disastrous response to the 2015 earthquake, which killed around 9,000 people. The reconstruction effort was widely criticized as slow and chaotic, partly because incompetent political appointees were placed in key agencies. Even a year after the disaster, thousands of victims were still living in temporary shelters due to delayed funds, corruption, and political infighting. Such failures have convinced many Nepalese that their political elite care little about public suffering and are busy enriching their own cronies. The root of this corruption and nepotism can be traced in Nepal's feudal and paternalistic political culture. Parties often function like family clubs, with leaders known as Netaji, great leader, whose words are rarely questioned within the party. Personal loyalty is valued more than merit. Though Nepal formally practices multi-party democracy, many observers say its day-to-day reality resembles a feudal democracy. It was in this context that the people finally lost their patience. Their anger turned explosive when the government attempted to take away their only outlet, social media, the platform where they expressed themselves and stayed connected with family abroad. As the Indian Express reported, the social media ban was like pouring salt on the nation's wounds. Apps like Facebook and WhatsApp are not just for entertainment, but crucial for Nepal's remittance economy. Many families rely on online communication with relatives abroad and even depend on digital money transfers. It is no wonder the internet shutdown triggered a furious backlash, seen as an attack on freedom, livelihoods, and social bonds amid an already desperate economy. This ultimately is what sparked the most brutal and destructive protests in Nepal's modern history. Protests that brought down the government,